The Star Wars brand still seems to be in quite a rough place at the moment, and after The Mandalorian Season 3 somewhat underperforming, people are hoping for some new Star Wars that's going to really drive up the hype again for this brand. And one of the ways that Star Wars can do that is look to what was successful in the past. Now, the Ahsoka series was teased back in the second season of The Mandalorian, with Ahsoka Tano showing up live action for the first time, as played by Rosario Dawson. And the fact that Star Wars Rebels seems to be one of those animated shows that so many fans of the Star Wars brand are raving about all the time, it was only a matter of time that now that Star Wars is leaning into the live action television projects, that it would get its own live action sequel series. And this project is being solely helmed by Dave Filoni, who seems to have been given a lot more creative control and input into the future of the Star Wars brand. He started off more or less as a protege to George Lucas on the Star Wars Clone Wars television series, and now he's been given his own sort of platform to do live action directing and writing these live action shows, including The Mandalorian and now obviously the Ahsoka series. It had also been announced that he was going to be directing a Star Wars film down the line, which is going to wrap up the TV universe that has been developed in The Mandalorian and what we're going to be getting in Ahsoka. Now, I am a big Star Wars fan and have been let down by some of the projects that have been released over the last few years. Personally, I actually think the best project they've released in a long time was the Andor TV series. I think that highlighted when you get a great writer like Tony Gilroy to develop a project and sort of be let loose on this world without being limited to this fan service that Dave Filoni seems to deliver. It can really create something great. I've seen a lot of people say, oh, Andor was boring and just it didn't appeal to them, and I kind of get that from maybe some younger fans, but I feel like this whole point just highlights that good storytelling at its core comes from good writing first, and I think Tony Gilroy did such a fantastic job on Andor. I don't know how he's going to top it on season 2. Not to say that I don't think Dave Filoni is incompetent writer, and the fact that he is so entwined with the Star Wars brand and knows what he's doing, he does really get to tell the stories he wants to tell, and as I've said, he is almost the successor of George Lucas in telling these stories in the Star Wars universe. Disappointingly, I've not actually seen Star Wars Rebels, and from my understanding about this show, if you want to go back and watch Rebels, you're going to need to in order to contextualise a lot of this story. So I'm hoping to do that before August 23rd. I've got some time yet. But I do know a bit about the story that was told across the animated series. And obviously I recognise Ahsoka Tano from Clone Wars, and then we've got Sabine, Hera and Ezra all featuring in the trailer. I'm also aware that the animated series Rebels introduced Lars Mikkelsen playing Grand Admiral Thrawn, and he's going to actually be reprising this role in live action. And I don't know too much about the expanded universe that got scrapped in the original acquisition of Star Wars from Disney, but I think Grand Admiral Thrawn was seemingly a very popular person and they wanted to bring him back in some way. And I think it's cool that we're getting to see him in live action, and I've seen a bit of the clips of him from the Rebels animated show. The trailer did somewhat surprise me when I first watched it, considering how violent it was for Star Wars and this sort of visceral attack of these non-Jedi characters, Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati, taking on these rebels, I guess they are, like trying to find this information to locate Grand Admiral Thrawn. And that is something I do like. I think that Star Wars has sometimes been quite tame when doing violence. I think that wasn't shown off too much in The Mandalorian, but I do think like seeing these action scenes with lightsabers is just something really great. And that's something that even Andor wasn't going to deliver on, because that was more of a political spy thriller. But this seems to be leaning more into the traditional Star Wars that we're used to over from basically the prequel trilogy, and then all the work that Dave Filoni has done on the Clone Wars and then the Rebels TV series. Because I have missed out on Rebels, I don't know if I'm missing on some of the clues that are dropped in this trailer. I have also talked about these characters being returning to this franchise, having Sabine, Hera, Ezra show up. But because I don't know where Rebels ended up and how that's going to impact the story. I don't know what story is being told in this and what it's going to lead to in the future, or how it's even going to connect with the third season of The Mandalorian. Because of this, I can't really speak too much on the content of the trailer other than its face value, and I do think the trailer overall has a great aesthetic. I think the action sequences in the trailer, they don't look terrible, they look very competent. I think going back to the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, there was some complaints about that being shot on the sound stages and that limited the space they could use. I'm not sure if that's the same thing that's happening on the set of Ahsoka, but I do think like this trailer kind of just looks a bit more well made compared to what we saw in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. And obviously I'm very disappointed how the Obi-Wan Kenobi series ended up, and I think a lot of people were hyped that that would be their hardcore favourite series going forward. But I can see this actually outshining the Obi-Wan Kenobi series and maybe some of the Mandalorian, but I'm not sure it's going to outdo Andor, especially for me, because I think Andor is just so well made and so well crafted as a project, not to say a Star Wars project, but a project as a whole, that it just outshone anything that the Disney Star Wars projects that have been developed over the years has had presented to us. I've also heard like the rumours going forward about Tamara Morrison appearing as Captain Rex. I don't know if that's true, and I think it has been confirmed, but I'm not too sure that Hayden Christensen is going to return in some shape or form as Anakin Skywalker, most likely as a Force ghost to sort of guide Ahsoka on her journey, or maybe we might even get a flashback to Anakin during the Clone Wars. We did get to see that briefly in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and I know some people criticise the CGI of that, but at the end of the day I don't really mind bad CGI. If you can have the actor return in some way and just have makeup, I think it's more believable than creating a completely CGI character. And like you've seen in The Flash, you'll see how Nicolas Cage looks as Superman. That's just completely awful CGI character. What they did with Anakin in the Obi-Wan series is far better than what we saw in The Flash, for example. We are going to be getting 2 episodes of the Ahsoka series on August 23rd, and I am, as I said, hoping to watch some of Rebels to kind of contextualise how the series is going to go forward. I would hope, though, that the series can be good without people watching Star Wars Rebels, because I think a lot of people might not have watched an animated series. I think some more people who are adults may not bother to watch these animated shows because they just think it's not for them. Like growing up as a teenager, that's when Star Wars Clone Wars came out, so I kind of had the connection to that. But if I'd have been 40 at the time the Clone Wars TV series came out, I might not have bothered watching it. And now there's a lot of stuff I'm going to be missing from the series because of the context of what we've seen in the past. I do recall Filoni saying you don't have to watch Rebels to understand this, but going in watching Rebels you'll probably have a greater understanding of the overall story and the arc of the characters. So that makes me a little less bothered that I haven't seen Rebels, but I am keen to maybe go back and watch it and see if I engage with the content. I might not get on with it. I might think it's just boring and then I may end up skipping Ahsoka anyway. But I do really like Star Wars overall. If you're going to ask me if I was a Star Wars fan, I would say, yeah, I'm a big Star Wars fan, despite having not seen all the content that they've produced. And people online will call you fake for that, but it's just how it is. People lead busy lives and don't have the time to watch and engage with everything of these projects and these IPs that they're in love with. Notably, I'll also say that obviously Ray Stevens passed away a couple of months ago, and he's playing the character Baylan Skoll, who's almost a Jedi bounty hunter, it seems. He's retired from being a Jedi after the events of Order 66, and we even see him talk to Ahsoka and reference that he knew Anakin and that Anakin was a great Jedi Master and spoke highly of her. So that is a cool way to sort of tie it back to the Clone Wars TV series and what we saw in the final Season 7 of the Clone Wars, tying in where Ahsoka was during the events of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. We don't currently know the fate of what Baylan Skoll is going to have in this series, but now that Ray Stevens has sadly passed away, don't know if they'll end up recasting the character or writing him out if his character was to survive. But I think that they're going to honour Ray Stevens as being one of his last roles before passing away. I imagine the first episode or the first 2 episodes will be dedicated to his memory, perhaps. I think that's a highly likely outcome. So overall, I think the trailer's very good. It's kind of got me excited to see live-action Star Wars again. I hope I do enjoy it. I want to see this content, and any content I do engage with in any way, I want it to be good. You know, I don't want to be wasting my time. And being a big fan of the Star Wars IP, I really hope this lives up to expectations. Although I'm not sure this show overall is targeted at someone like me who hasn't seen Star Wars Rebels. But having watched Clone Wars and then getting to see Ahsoka in live action when we saw her in The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, I thought that was really cool. So I really hope going forward I'm going to enjoy what this series has to offer and how it's going to play into the larger Mandoverse, of how it's going to tie into the other TV series that they're adapting for Disney Plus, and then the tie-up movie that's going to be directed by Dave Filoni. So I will be sure to watch this when it airs on Disney Plus on August 23rd. And that's it for my thoughts on the trailer that we got for Ahsoka, and I'd love to hear what you think about the trailer in the comments below. Please give this video a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and please make sure to click the bell icon to receive notifications for all of my other videos. That's it for now. Thanks for tuning in.